welcome to a very, very special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have one of the legends of TV and broadcasting in the studio with us today. And before I give you his name, I'll kind of set the teaser and tell you that we also are joined here by our general manager, Ms. Maxine Willis. And Ms. Willis, we have had a variety of people on the show with us before.
Yes, sir.
From vice presidential candidates.
That's right.
To mayors, state senators, U.S. senators, Congress people. But I have never seen you more nervous about anyone that has ever been here at Watkins Broadcasting at WHPR than I have with our special guest today.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, too, that the smile on her face has never been broadened. For any other guest that I recall than for the legend, the man, and we are so very plumb pleasingly proud to have in the studio with us today, Mr. Bill Proctor.
Yay! Yes, we are. You know, normally when you ask me to be on the show, I'm usually ducking and dodging and running because I'm like, no, I do kids programming. I don't do shows like this. But there's no way that I could pass up this opportunity. So, Mr. Griffin, thank you for allowing me to be on your show this morning, to have an opportunity to sit next to a man who's had such a great impact on this city alone. Although he's been in 5 markets, been in this business with Channel 7 for 33 years, in the business for over 40 years. And to be able to have him in this studio, which he's no stranger, he's been here before. But I missed it. I didn't have the honor of sitting next to him. But when you talk about the media and the passion that he has, I know he's here to talk to us about a special project that he's involved in that has ties to Highland Park. So you certainly want to listen and hear what he's going to talk about today. But there's no way we can start talking about that project until we talk about the man. And we are just, first of all, honored, sir, to have you here with us today, and just to share with us your career, what it's been like, and how you first got involved in media. I know you've been all over, and not to mention the work that you've done with the wrongful conviction. And I'm a living witness and testimony of what your time, your talent, your expertise has meant to so many families who've had loved ones who are wrongfully convicted. But let's start from the beginning. Let's start from how this all started with Mr. Bill Proctor being in the business for over 40 years. We're taking notes.
And you know, it's so funny because I take notes about how I do my interviews from listening to how you've done your interviews in the past with people that you've interviewed. And one person that I know I was talking to that mentioned to me, and she said, her name is Margaret, and she said, make sure you let Bill Proctor know that I'm one of his biggest fans.
Wow.
And she's in PR, and that's one of the things that she takes a lot of the way that you and your interviewing style and the way you make people feel so comfortable when you talk to them. And that's something that we want to try and do more of.
Absolutely.
And looking at you right now and seeing you all the years that I've watched you on TV, I never would have thought this day would have transpired. So again, I echo what Ms. Willis is saying. We are very, very proud to have you, and we definitely would love to go and hear, because we know you probably have a lot of stories about what you've done in media and some of the people that you've probably interviewed with. But I just want to ask you one question before we get started. Is there any person in particular that you have ever interviewed that probably made more of an impact on you in all of the years that you've been in TV and radio?
My goodness, that's almost unfair. But first, thank you for having me here today. My goodness, when you think back over a 40-year period, I'm not sure how you choose one or two. Yes, I've been in front of at least 3 different presidents, a couple of vice presidents, but I guess some of the more powerful ones were maybe the little people. There was a child after I had been at Channel 7 only a few years who literally had a brain tumor, and without surgery that one of the big insurance companies refused to pay for, we might have lost him. Well, he explained in those few childish words, I need some help. Can we convince somebody to step up and make sure I have my life-saving surgery? And before we ended up on the air, the insurance company changed their mind because they knew that we were asking the question and we were going to tell the story. So by the time we told the story of the young man's tumor and we reached out to a certain very famous surgeon from here who decided to take him to Johns Hopkins and do the surgery, the insurance company changed their mind and said, yes, we will pay for it. So those few words from a child were very impactful, and the fact that we were able to turn around something major and get that $100,000 surgery done was very impactful. So yes, never mind the presidents, it was the child that left the impression.
Have you still made contact, or is this person still in contact with you?
The boy became a man. And when I retired in 2013, he and his father showed up in the studio
Oh, wow.
to surprise me and to thank me after all these years. He unfortunately has had a long road of more surgeries and tumors coming back and that kind of thing. But yes, he and his father came in, and it was a wonderful surprise in 2013 when I retired from Channel 7.
Wow. So, Mr. Proctor, how did you get in media? I know that you served our country. You were a police officer,
Yes.
assistant to the police chief. How did all this happen?
Well, when I was doing the police work, I was also at the University of Maryland.
Okay.
The real U of M, I'll throw that in,
Okay.
not to upset any of your viewers. But anyway, yes, I was lucky enough to have a night class where the professor guaranteed a B if you either got published or you ended up in a job in media.
Okay.
So after 6 attempts at trying to get published and not getting it, I knocked on a few doors and ended up at the ABC affiliate in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And there I worked on the weekends while doing the police work, and got an affinity and understanding of what happens behind the scenes to get a news show on the air. And so in college and at the television station, some very special people were around and helped me understand some things. One of those people was a fellow named Charlie Gibson. Some of your viewers may remember that on ABC News years back, he was the primary news anchor for ABC, was also on Good Morning America.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Charlie's still with us in his 80s. He and his daughter are doing podcasts and things, but I learned the importance of exposure,
Right.
what journalism can do for people who have suffered in some way, shape, or form. Not ignored, but suffered and maybe not getting to a place they need to be. To early on in my life understand the power of that meant that, okay, if I ever had the opportunity, I will use that influence to get some things done. I had no idea then, everybody wanted to quote unquote be on television, but I don't think that was me.
Right.
Yes, it was nice to have the exposure. Yes, it was nice to be recognized. But the real bottom line is just being on television and having people recognize you falls short
That's right.
of what you're supposed to be and do as a human being, responsible for the welfare of your fellow man. So yes, it was very important to get that early opportunity. And at the time, I had a lot else going on. college, full-time job, wife, house, cars, all of that going on. So yeah, I was very lucky to be introduced, and it turned into be a lifelong career.
Wow. Fascinating. So it started in Maryland?
In Washington, D.C.,
Washington,
where I lived. And then when I got into the University of Maryland, I moved out not too far from the campus. But of course, my work was in downtown Washington, among all the Capitol buildings, because I was with the Federal Protective Service, one of the original members, by the way, in 1970 something. I'll just leave that out there.
Okay.
But yeah, I was a police officer and was an administrative assistant to the chief. We had 5 states, 2,800 officers. And yes, there was a lot to be done. It was the time of protest.
Wow.
And yeah, we were on the front lines trying to make sure that what the protesters had to say didn't spill over into the government buildings that we were supposed to protect and the employees.
Right.
So, yes, and that came after the Air Force.
Okay.
So that was Vietnam era Air Force, and I went in right after high school in 1966.
Wow.
I'm giving away my age at this point.
Wow. Well, media technology has changed so much. What are some of your views on how we're communicating today? And the other question that I have, Mr. Griffin, you know that many of our show hosts here I'm sure they're glued to the TV knowing that you are being here with us today. And many of them, this station is allowing them to get across their message, their product, their service as host of a show. What advice would you give to our hosts who are striving to provide information, to make a difference, to help uplift, enhance the quality of life, to help educate, to help inform our viewers? What would you say to them?
Well, number one on the requirement list is listening. A story will start with a premise, an idea. Why are you talking to that person? There may be some accident, some tragedy, some new bit of information, some fun thing happening in the community. All right, so that gives you a foundation, a platform to start with your questions.
Okay.
But once you get those first few answers, you have to listen.
Right.
And the listening means hearing beyond the statement, hearing that somebody has to say something about a certain time frame, a person, an event, an accident, a tragedy, but you're listening for what else needs to come to the table.
Yeah.
And so it's not just what you're being given. You're listening for what is behind the scenes. You're listening for the broader picture. You're listening to expand what you're being given. And I guess that's the number one bit of advice I would give anybody who claims to be a journalist or somebody who's trying to collect information for a community.
Right.
Absolutely.
The other thing, Mr. Griffin, that fascinated me about Mr. Proctor, and that is, like what he just talked about, he's done training for businesses in media relations.
Yes, it's just a matter of making sure that your messages are clean and concise and not confusing. And so you never want to have a business message that isn't getting to the point of what your business does, how you can serve clients and do more than the expectation of whatever industry that is. And so it's those things that you have to think of when it comes to business communication, advertising, marketing, public relations, or just communicating with your potential customers as to who you are, what you can do, and why you are the person to provide the best possible service.
Wow, Mr. Griffin, I know that has sparked a question in your mind. I feel your wheels turning right now.
Well, Tim had just mentioned that we have a caller on the phone. And Tim, can you patch us in to that caller calling into the station? Caller, you're on the air with us, with Bill Proctor and myself and Maxine Willis.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you, Maxine, Mr. Crawford?
Yes,
and
hello.
Bill Proctor.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm good.
This is R.J. Watkins.
You know, I'm in this building and I'm seeing your name all over the place. I guess that must mean something about where I'm sitting.
Well, I think it means more to be honored with your presence. You're the reason I do what I do. I'm doing what I'm doing. And I want to thank you for your service and being so gracious to the reports that you have done with Maxine and her son. And it's just a wonderful thing. You're a great person. And when I grow up, I want to be like you.
I think a whole lot of people do, Mr. Watkins.
No, RJ, I'm real happy to hear the sound of your voice. I know there have been some challenges, but just to know that you're still around to put out those golden tones and the wonderful thoughts is great. You've done marvelously here, still standing after how many decades? So yeah, congratulations as the continuance is present, and God bless you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you, and don't be a stranger. You're welcome back anytime you want to come back.
All right, sir. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Wow, you got the president of the station calling in, and that was a real nice surprise. But I know that we were all excited to hear about you coming, and again, we know that you're here to talk about this project that's so near and dear to you and has some ties to Highland Park. But I just want to do a segue into how your passion for the truth led to helping those who have been wrongfully convicted. So just share some of that with us.
Well, I'm glad RJ mentioned it because it gave you and I essentially an introduction. I've known Miss Willis for a number of years because what's it been, 8, maybe 10 almost?
Almost 10 years.
10 years ago, yes, and I was retired from television back then. I was a licensed private investigator, and Miss Willis felt that I might be able to help in her son's wrongful conviction case. Mario was a strong, young real estate tycoon in the making in Detroit, owning a number of properties, married to a nice lady, and doing quite well. There was nothing negative in Mario's past. College graduate, potential NFL football player, just one accident with a knee, and that stopped that. But he wanted to do more and do more for his city.
Yes.
And so everything was in place. Not even a parking ticket from what I could find. But the bottom line is one of his properties, one that he owned and was renovating, was vacant at the time, but was being used late at night by one of his handymen. And this man went inside late one night, apparently had a can of something to keep warm with a young woman. Okay, so that was a rendezvous, but the rendezvous went bad when the can of the accelerant tipped over and started a fire. That fire went on for hours, and then with the fire out, I guess the chief at the location, the fire chief, noticed some hot spots in the building. He sent 3 firefighters inside, and the roof collapsed and killed a firefighter. From that horrible accident came charges against Miss Willis's son. And the lie told by the handyman, who had the presence of mind to call the fire department, but later was pressured by the police department to say this was some sort of an arson conspiracy. That's a lie. That's not true. And so for all these years, I've been trying to make sure that Mario Willis not only gets out of prison, but justice is determined and will show that the government got it wrong back when he was convicted. Now, that fight continues. We will be in court next week on this issue. Hopefully you'll hear about it and follow it. What brings me here today is this project that actually started with a horrible double homicide in the city of Highland Park in 1974. A fairly young man at the time, the mother of his 2 children, were murdered, execution style, in a house on Cortlandt 232 Cortland. The house is no longer there, but Donald Goines is very well known among people who read books about urban life. He has 16 books, and in prison, he is famous for all of what he wrote. This is a man who published, even after his horrible murder, has 25 million books sold.
Wow.
25 million. All right. Well, the horrible murder of his lady and he took place in a house where 2 children survived whatever was going on against the adults. I was at a press conference with Donna Saylor, the daughter of the woman who was there at the time, one of those that was in the house for the murder. And so at this point, we would like to know why Donald Goines and Saylor were murdered in 1974. It's more than 50 years, but there is a documentary film that's going to be produced. And with that information that someone might have for me, I should give you a telephone number of 586-873-1371. That's 586-873-1371. What we're asking is that anyone from that day, anyone that had been told by relatives what they think or what they know happened and why Donald Goines was murdered, I need to know about it because I've been hired as the investigator for the project and the documentary film. So at this point, it's just a matter of how do you find information that's more than 50 years old? In some attic someplace, someone might have made some notes. Somebody might have known about what conflict led to the murder of Donald Goines and Miss Saylor. So that's the current project. It's not often an investigator of any ilk gets to be told, okay, you solve one that's over 50 years old.
Wow.
But here I am.
Well, they knew who the man who could get the job done, and that's why we're excited to have you here today to not only just honor you for the work that you've done and for so many. And when I think about Mr. Ray Gray, a young man who spent 48 years
yes.
in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and you, Bill Proctor, I think he's the longest, isn't that the
Well, at 48 and a half years, I guess the issue with Ray's time in prison is that he's not designated or given the title of exoneree. He has not been exonerated of the robbery murder that sent him to prison in the first place. I can tell you Ray Gray didn't do it.
right?
I can tell you a man named Charlie Matthews did. I can tell you that there was another man involved in that robbery in 1973. Ray Gray didn't walk out of prison until May of 2021.
Wow.
2021.
Wow.
Now, you mentioned that you know, because we like to do on the show to kind of break it down. So when you mentioned about exonerees, can you define that term?
An exoneree is someone that the criminal justice system has deemed innocent of the crime that sent them to prison. So you are exonerated once that announcement is made, usually from a judge, agreed to by a prosecutor. And after you have been exonerated, you become an exoneree. And there are many people in southeastern Michigan, many out of Wayne County, that went to prison for crimes they did not commit. There is an organization of exonerees. So we have come to terms with the problems with the criminal justice system in this country by acknowledging that people are wrongfully convicted. And the legislature in the state of Michigan actually came to terms with that after 12 years of hearing about the cases and finally put in place money for someone, $50,000 per year every year you spend in prison for a crime you did not commit. So that's in place. Is it enough? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Mainly because the line of people claiming actual innocence in Michigan prisons alone is substantial. And yes, we have 5 different conviction integrity units that are supposed to answer the bell and hear their pleas of actual innocence, but it's taking them much too long. Those organizations are underfunded. And we need everybody to step up and insist on Lansing doing more in this space of conviction integrity units to evaluate claims of actual innocence and to get the innocent people out of prison.
Well, we've got to take a break, so we'll be right back with Maxine Willis, the legend, Bill Proctor. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Matter. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I want to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. Two of his three children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield, and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.
Watch WHPR and TV 33 when you want, where you want, how you want. WHPR is now in your pocket. Download our free app by going to the App Store or Google Play and enter WHPR TV in the search engine. And there we are. You can download WHPR TV or radio. You heard about it. Now come be a part of it. Roku, Detroit, worldwide. Approximately 8 million viewers.
313watkins.com. Streaming on Roku.
And we are back with our special guest, Mr. Bill Proctor. And joining me on this journey today is Maxine Willis, our general manager here for the station. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. And we have been joined by Bill Proctor to talk about a project that he's involved in regarding about the author, the prolific author, Donald Goines. And it's going to be a documentary that's going to be filmed here in the Highland Park area as well as in Detroit. So, Mr. Proctor, you were saying that they're going to be filming in both locations. So what exactly is it that they're going to really talk about during this documentary regarding about the death of Donald Goines?
Well, Donald Goines was a very interesting, brilliant young man in many ways. He he was so ready to start an adult life that at age 15, he went and signed up for the Air Force during the Korean War. 15. Obviously, that wasn't supposed to happen, but he managed to pull it off. And because I'm an Air Force veteran too, so that's of interest to me. But he went to the Air Force, served, and unfortunately, during that time, he was exposed to drug use. Came out, struggled with it. Yes, he did some things that sent him to jail and prison. But at some point, he decided that what he was experiencing, what he could talk about as a fiction journalist, he would put down on paper. And so he wrote at least 22 books that we know of. 16 were in fact published, and the 16 were completed before his death, his murder in 1974. And as I mentioned, millions have been purchased. But Donald Goines' work became must-read material inside the nation's prison system. And so the two men who have decided to produce this film, because it's important to them in their lives, were in fact prisoners. One of them is actually from here, Robert Tape Bailey, T-A-P-E, believe it or not, is what he kind of calls himself. But Robert Bailey went to prison from Michigan and Ohio problems that he caused for himself, and a fellow named Craig Gore is the other executive producer. So two young men, former prisoners, both now have Hollywood connections. Craig has actually written for some major television and shows and movies, but they have their own talents, and they have decided that the story of Donald Goines and his impact on the world should be told. Now, a part of telling that story, these two guys have already made contact with a number of very well-known rappers. And so they too were exposed to Goines' work. They too were influenced by it, and some of Goines' work is actually quoted in a number of their rap tunes. So in this long ago death, there is continued today impact on the population, impact on entertainment. So that's the reason for doing the documentary, to essentially applaud the talent and talk about the impact. But as an investigator, yeah, I'd like to know why it is that the Highland Park Police had no idea who did this horrible double homicide with children in the house. 232 Cortland, if I'm not mistaken, is the address.
Yeah, it's right here in
The
Highland
house,
Park.
the house is not there anymore, but certainly the ghost of the victims there certainly lurks and is asking the question, why and how and who. So that's what investigators try to do, is find out the answers.
So as an investigator, Mr. Proctor, where do you start at? And then now, what is your objective from this documentary that you'd like to glean from this documentary being aired?
Well, the easy question to where would you start would be with the police information. Well, but I'm told that there was a flood at some point in Highland Park that destroyed the police documentation of this and many other crimes. So I don't have that place to start. So one of the reasons for asking for your viewers to essentially look in the attic and maybe talk to some friends and give me a call at that number, I'll say it one more time, 586-873-1371. I need to hear from people who would be of that age, who would have known and maybe lived on Cortland.
And this was around the time of?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the fall of 1974.
Wow, okay.
6 years before I even came to Detroit and Michigan to work in television. So yeah, it's possible that there's something out there. It's possible that there are people who heard rumors or might know exactly what happened, and so please call me, is what I can say. 586-873-1371 is the phone number to get to me and to start the ball rolling with information that might help me, well, We really don't expect to solve the murder, but quite frankly, there may be enough information out there that we can frame the murder, what it was about, who may have been responsible, and why. That's what we believe we'll be able to find and put into the documentary. Whoever was responsible for that murder is likely dead themselves. But if we can frame it, if we can put information around some credible historic material, then the answer is that's where we need to go.
Now, are there families involved in this documentary at all?
Yes, Donna Saylor is one of the children that was in the house at the time. She didn't know anything about what was happening except for maybe the noises, but she doesn't remember much of that.
And she was about how old when that happened?
The two children, I think one boy, one girl, 2 and 4.
2 and 4 years of age?
2 and 4.
Wow.
So fortunately, they were not identified by the assailants, or maybe they didn't see them, or maybe they had somewhat of a heart and left. But the 2 adults were killed execution style with bullet wounds in the front and back of their heads. So horrible tragedy, but certainly a legacy that is very important to people who know of the work of Donald Goines.
So you say she is involved in this project?
She is helping the producers in what she can find with information about family and connectivity and the travels of her father and that kind of thing. But yeah, there is interest, broad interest nationally. I'm not remembering all of the rappers, but I'm thinking 50 Cent is one of them. Who has already provided an interview about the effect of the Goines work on his work. Right. So yeah, and there are others who have been approached and who knew about Goines' writing and has used it in some of their productions.
Right. Mm-hmm. So is there a timeline for the documentary, or have they started?
We hope to start shooting officially next year with a release in 2026. Some of it's been shot, some of the interviews have been shot, but there is a ton of work to be done. And I guess I'll be on the front end of that here.
Wow.
And we definitely want to invite you to come back, whenever you're, doing this documentary and you want to come back, and if there's progress or if there's more information that we can assist you with in trying to garner from this case, you definitely have an open invitation to come back, to the station to, help get the documentary publicized, especially because, as you're saying, someone probably remembers something. But it's just a matter of trying to jar that memory, of what they may have saw or what they may have heard. Because like you're saying, if it was gunshots, where someone was, executed, they had to hear something, at the same time.
Well, relatives of the cadre of Highland Park police officers that might have been on the job in 1974, who knows? Some of those officers might have made some notes, and the information is in the attic.
Right.
So the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of those former Highland Park police officers might be able to put their hands on some documents that they're not thinking about and haven't found and haven't discarded. That would be kind of the magic that could come out of this plea, that there is information out there. Nobody's just turned the page or gone up in the attic and dusted off the box. And in the box, the notes from a former Highland Park police officer just might be valuable to us today.
Wow. I just keep going back to how this started with these young men. I mean, that I can't get away from that. The impact that he had on their lives. And now they are in the process of putting a documentary together because of the impact in prison. That is just
yes. Well,
it's just phenomenal, and we're not only just so honored to have you here, but to be able to. That's been our prayer from the beginning of this station, that these airwaves be used to make a difference, to bring awareness, to educate, to uplift, to inspire, and now to be in a position to say to our viewers to plead with them that if anyone knows anything about this case, and we will certainly have this number up, and we'll continually repeat this show so that you never know who may be listening. And they certainly got the right man for the job because, I know personally, and from speaking to so many people whose lives you've touched through seeking justice, through the proven innocence that you've been a part of for so many years, the difference that you've made in so many families' lives, and now to be a part of something that, and it goes back to those who've been wrongfully convicted or have been in prison, that when they come back, they have a message and they find a way to showcase and impact those people that have made an impact in their lives. So we just can't thank you enough for being here today. And I just would like to have you just look into that camera and just make a plea. And why is it so, if they find something, know something, why it's so critically important for them to give you a call?
Well, once again, the phone number is 586-873-1371. That's the number to get to me with information on the Donald Goines case. I've been fortunate in the years of working in wrongful convictions that there are 15 people who are free from the criminal justice system based on some elements of my work, either as a reporter, an advocate, or an investigator. If you'd like to know more about that, we have a website. It's seekingJusticeBP.com. seekingJusticeBP.com. I wish I could give you a space to send contributions, but yes, there are many, many cases that we know about where the families don't have money to pay for investigative work. The hours can be expensive. The hours can be long. You start on the road trying to find the information that can exonerate someone, or to look back more than 50 years in the Donald Goines horrific execution of him and the mother of his children right here in the city of Highland Park. All these things are very important. And if you know of a case that I need to know about that I don't know about, feel free to use that very same number. But I think I can be found online at a number of telephone numbers and emails. So certainly glad to be with you, and I'm hoping that we have kind of shaken a tree, trying to get information, brought information on the Donald Goines case and others, as proving innocence will continue.
That's right.
Well, we have been so proud to have you on the show with us today, and we hope that, as you're saying, some trees have been shaken that will allow you to be able to go and come to some kind of resolution about, so that there can be some type of closure to his family and to others that were involved, with them. But again, we have been very, very pleasingly pleasured to have Bill Proctor on the show with us today, and we definitely hope that he will not be a stranger and will come back, and whatever we can do here at Watkins Broadcasting,
Absolutely.
we would love to do that. And then for you to get the owner, the president, to call into the show, that speaks volumes, Bill Proctor, because of the fact and all the work that he, myself, Ms. Willis, and others, Tim and others here, Henry Tyler, we all are very proud of the work that you have done, the work that you are doing, and the work that you will continue to do. Long live Bill Proctor.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And
Thank
we're going to
you.
take a quick break, and we will be right back with Truth to Power. I'm your host, along with this journey, the general manager, Maxine Willis, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered. A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wcccd.edu.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Mattered. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
From the desk of RJ Watkins, this is a WHPR editorial.
I'm Ariana Watkins, and for decades, my father, RJ Watkins, has served our community with quality radio and TV service through WHPR and Roku. Today, I'm proud to stand beside him, continuing the legacy built on trust, innovation, and your support. We're here because of you, and we'll keep bringing you the best now and for generations to come. Thank you for supporting us and growing with us.
This has been a WHPR editorial.
I wasn't ready. 1 minute he was here, the next one gone. What do? No life insurance, no savings, just funeral costs, unpaid bills, and fear. I can't keep living like this. Life insurance just wasn't for him to get. It was for us, for all of us, for the ones left behind. Love your family enough to plan ahead, because love lives on. Let me, Joey Combs, help you write your last love letter to your family. I can be reached at www.linktree.com/Joey Combs. I am a life insurance broker. I can be reached at www.linktree.com/Joey Combs. Let me, Joey Combs, help you write your last love letter to your family.
313watkins.com. Streaming on Roku.
And good morning again, and welcome to a special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we are joined in this journey today with my co-host, and that is our general manager, Ms. Maxine Willis. And as you see, we have kind of shifted positions, and now we have another person who we are very plumb pleased to have on this show with us today, and her name is Miss Joey Combs. And we wanted to have Joey to come on today. Originally, we had scheduled a program to talk about wellness with Dr. Carla Mitchell, but unfortunately, Ms. Mitchell is a little under the weather today, so now we're going to have Joey, who was going to be a guest that was going to be on the show with Dr. Mitchell to talk about wellness. But we definitely want to extend to Dr. Mitchell our prayers that she makes a very quick recovery very, very soon. But we are very fortunate to have Joey to come on and to talk about life and why you need to take better care of yourself when it comes down to making certain that you are insured. And that's important when it comes down to taking care of yourself, not just when it comes down to to ensure that your body is maintained when it comes down to health insurance, but then also when it comes down to car insurance, as well as life insurance. And a lot of people that you see, when things happen, just like, when things happen to people and they may make a transition or something happens in the case of someone who may have been murdered, someone died unexpectedly, or someone who makes a transition where it's something from a long-term illness that they may have gone through. But there's a lot that gets involved with that process. And nowadays you see a lot of people that are doing GoFundMe pages. And they're trying to raise money for the burial of the person who, may have been murdered or who may have died unexpectedly. So what we're really trying to let our viewing audience understand is that you need to go and make certain that you've got all of your affairs taken care of now, and not to wait until it's later. And it could be something that could be an encumbrance upon people that may still be with us after you've made your transition. So that's one of the things that we had a show with State Representative Brenda Carter about a month ago, and we talked about insurance. As many of you know, Brenda Carter is a state representative that represents the Pontiac, Waterford area, and she's also over insurance with the state of Michigan in her capacity as one of the committees that she chairs in Lansing. And we were also very fortunate to have Joey Combs, who's a licensed life insurance agent, to also talk about not just what happens to people while they're here and to maintain their being, not just when it comes down to health, but also mental health at the same time. But we are very, very fortunate to have Joey Combs to talk a little bit about why life insurance is very important. And you see a lot of the commercials now, because I think when I look at a lot of the TV shows, the streaming shows, as well as the shows that are on regular TV that have commercials that are really discussing about life insurance. And you see all these different scenarios where you see, someone who questions about the age of a person to be able to get life insurance, to have the question about whether or not if you have a pre-existing condition, whether or not if you can still get life insurance, as well as how much life insurance and what that covers. So again, we are very pleased to have Joey Combs on to kind of talk about life insurance and the importance of why people should go and have life insurance. Joey Combs, welcome to Truth to Power.
Thank you and good morning. Before I talk about that importance, I want to tell you how I got to getting life insurance license. It was actually a health scare of why I got life insurance license. Black Friday of 2019, I woke up with back pain that was so unbearable. So in December, I went to the doctor. They told me I had a UTI. They gave me some medicine to treat it. January, approximately a month.
Now, I'm going to go back to my biological days and say
urinary tract
infection. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to check to make sure that I still remembered that from my biological science days back in Michigan State, but go ahead.
January symptoms got severe around the same time that they did in December. Go back to the doctor. They tell me it's the flu. February, same time, it gets intense. And during this time, I'm starting to wake up between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. every morning. Motrin wasn't helping. Tylenol wasn't helping. Nothing wasn't helping. February, I went back to the doctor. He touched my stomach. He said, oh, you need to go to the OBGYN because you either have some fibroids or cysts. So I end up going to the OBGYN either that day or the next few days. I go, they order the pelvic ultrasound. We find out that I have cysts that are like the size of oranges or grapefruits. Wow. Yeah. So that was what was pushing on me. So that was what was making me not know when I had to use the bath, I had to urinate and causing me to wake up at night. Like at that time from Black Friday until probably, that was 2019, until May of 2020, I slept on my love seat because I could have my feet up on one end and my head up on the other because the pain was so intense. Yeah. And you get to February, a few days before I actually went to the OBGYN, I had met Dr. Mitchell at a health and wellness event that Black Women's Roundtable Metro Detroit put on. So she was there to speak about health and wellness. And at the time, Rachel Allen, who owns the Operations School in Farmington Hills, she was there as well to speak about business stuff. So I literally met Dr. Mitchell. I get to the OBGYN. By the end of February, they're telling me that these cysts are humongous. In that same, that's to the end of February. Because my mom and sister at that time both had stage 2 breast cancer at 46, they referred me to a gynecologist, so a cancer gynecologist. So he gave me his opinion. By the time I made it to his office, which was the first, I'll never forget, it was the first Friday in March. I walk into their office. They tell me that they have surgery scheduled. They've called in medications, that I'm going to probably be getting a full hysterectomy. I mean, it was just some of the things the guy said. And I had my sister on the phone, and I ain't never left the doctor's office crying. Like, they made me feel like in that moment, that Friday, that I was about to die soon. And so I get home that night, and I was talking to one of my friends, like, how did we go from me just having back pain to like, I might could die, or, or this could be cancer, like just all of these things. So she was like, go to the doctor that you met last month, the holistic doctor. I went on her website, saw what time she opened. I called her at that time, that Saturday morning. She didn't answer. There was an event downtown that weekend that I went to because that was the year we had the presidential election that Tuesday in Michigan in March. So I went down. I left home early enough to stop at her office to make an appointment and make it to the event on time. That's Saturday. Tuesday was the midterms here, the presidential thing where we voted for who would, And that night was the night, if I remember correctly, that the governor came on TV and said that was our first case of COVID in Michigan. Wow. So that Saturday, I set my appointment for that Thursday. That Friday, they told me that my surgery was like the 17, 18, 19, 20. What I do remember is by the time we got close to the surgery date is when the governor shut the state down. So you couldn't go to no doctors or nothing. But I had already scheduled my appointment with the holistic doctor. So I met with her 2 days. I met with her, I think, Thursday was March 12th in 2020. So I met with her. She did what she did. We waited for the results to come back. But in the interim, I know in the back of my mind, I got this surgery scheduled to have a full hysterectomy. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. What if I want to have more kids? I mean, I know I was 40 plus already, but it was a hope. And then there was no option to even have the surgery because the governor shut the state down. So the only option I had at that point was the holistic doctor because we couldn't go anywhere. Then her testing came back, and we just went through the process. But what I remember that Friday that I stood in the office, my mother, because we talked about this a month ago, my mother passed when I was 21 from stage 4 breast cancer. So she had stage 2 when I was 14. And I remember when the insurance man used to, and the Watkins man used to come to the house.
Yeah.
I'm a little too young for the milkman. But I remember, so I knew when she passed, I knew how to call the company that we were with to try to take over my policy. And I think that this was a history lesson I was getting before I knew it was a lesson. When they told me how much my mama was paying for us per month all of our life, and you know what it was worth, that's when I didn't realize that black folks was getting redlined, even in life insurance. So I cashed.
What do you mean when you say the word redline? Explain to our audience. What do you mean when you say redline?
When we were paying so much for so little back then, the way we got treated. And so I cashed that policy in and started my own policy. So when I stood in that doctor's office that day, and this was the top, cancer gynecologist at that health system, I was like, oh my God, what if I didn't have life insurance, but I did? And I'm about to die. And that was a powerful moment. So as we continue on through the journey, and I started going through a treatment plan, which we'll talk about on another show because she's coming. People watched me transform on Zoom, because when the pandemic hit, I was about 236 pounds. With her treatment plan, let's see, I had a pelvic ultrasound February, then I had one in April right before I started, then I had another one in June. I was having them every 8 weeks. Between the April pelvic ultrasound and the June, I went from 240 pounds down to 170 something.
Wow.
Well, 236 to it was like 174, 176. And so one of the things that she worked a lot on me on when you talk about mental health was mindset. She was like, you got to make a choice on if you want to live or if you want to die. Right. And the reason she did that was I did ask for a second opinion, and my OB sent me to a second opinion doctor, surgeon, OBGYN surgeon doctor from a different health system. And they gave me the same diagnosis. But so his nurse at the second practice, she would call me once a week, every week, to be like, Ms. Combs. And you've seen the picture posted on Facebook that I've showed where she sent me a letter in the mail. I mean, you need to, because at some point, once the governor had shut us down, they kind of opened up for emergency stuff. And so she would call me every week that month of April in 2020 and be like, it's what would she say? She'd give a percentage in like the 90s that this could be cancer, so you need to come have this surgery. And every time she did it, it would spiral me out like, oh my God, I'm about to die. And so Dr. Mitchell did tell me, she said, you're going to have to make a choice on if you want to live or if you want to die. And that was a transformational moment for me. That's how I started the Facebook group Mindset Enhancement. Me time, because you got to work on your mindset. And as I continued on the health journey, as my illness started becoming my wellness, I woke up, it was literally Saturday, August 1st, I woke up and was like, I want to get life insurance license because I don't ever want someone to be standing in the doctor's office and they don't have life insurance and their family is going to have to figure out how to bury them and then grieve afterwards. Wow. What question you got? You like you got a question?
Well, and that's something that I think is sad because a lot of people are going through that right now.
That's right.
And, even just as you were saying, Joey, about during the time of the pandemic, there were people that were making transitions during that time. And it was really interesting because you were limited, number one, on how many people could actually attend the homegoing service.
That's right.
You were limited on the time and the ability to be able to go to the hospital to even visit people that were sick, people that were on respirators or on ventilators. And it was just, and then the people that were in the nursing homes and even in hospice care that could not be visited by loved ones during that time.
That's right.
And didn't know how to plan the burial for someone who may have been terminally ill. And that's the part that was really traumatic for people.
Yes.
Because they didn't know. And then they're scrambling around trying to go and and even making arrangements. Even if they did have insurance, going to try and make arrangements during that time. So there was so much, Ms. Willis, Ms. Combs, that people had to go through.
Yes.
And now it's like we should be learning lessons from what was happening then.
Yes.
That's right. Yes.
To today.
Yes.
Because, you know, if you continue to make the same mistakes, have you learned anything?
Correct.
From them? And as you're saying too, even like in your great commercial that you did before we had the show today, asking people, why do you want to wait
Yes.
when you can do it now? And that's the importance. But it was something in terms of say that here, looking at you and the transformation that you went to from what you were to how you are today.
What's crazy is my family thought that I was actually dying because I lost the weight. So they thought I was more healthy when I was actually sick than when I was actually better because I was skinnier.
But you know, that's so interesting because that's the same thing that people thought when it came down to, you know, an R&B singer that most people know named Luther Vandross.
That's
you know,
right.
Did you like Big Luther or
Yeah.
did you like Little Luther?
I like both Luthers.
And that was and it was kind of like the same thing when it came down to Elvis Presley.
That's right.
You know, because people, did you like Big Elvis or did you like Little Elvis?
And I'm gonna have to go look at pictures of Elvis.
You know, but that's the thing. But that was well before, you know. But the thing is that sometimes when people see people that have lost a lot of weight, you know, as you both may be able to attest, that people do think that they are afflicted with something going on. Because I mean, and it's interesting because I look at somebody who I see in the press a lot, and that's Al Sharpton. Because Al Sharpton has lost a lot of weight.
Yes, he has.
And there were people that may have thought that there had been something health-wise going on with him because of all of the weight that he had lost. And I mean, he looks good, but I mean, he lost a lot of weight, and people were really wondering, was there something going on with him? Because see, the one thing that I think most people thought was that they thought that AIDS was something that hit a lot of people that made them lose the weight. And that was a misconception, you know, that a lot of people had when it came to AIDS or being HIV aware that may have been going on, you know, with someone. So, you know, it's good that you went through the treatment plan that you went through with Dr. Mitchell. And so kind of just take us a little bit through the plan that you went through.
So once she does her testing, and that's for her to talk about when she comes instead of me, what's produced at the end of that was there's a report. And the report basically can tell you from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet what's going on in your body. But I think the most powerful thing in the report when she gives it to you is that it tells you what things are inflammatory to your body. So I can remember my first report had salmon, asparagus, hummus, and garlic. Now, remember, the workplace just shut down a few weeks ago, so one of my favorite things to do on payday is eat Bucharest. Hey, it just is. And so everything that's on the report had to come out of my diet for 90 days. So I had to give up pop because I ain't gonna lie, I was a number one with extra max sauce in the large. Because I'm on the road a lot. You know, that's my favorite. So, well, we can't eat that no more because everybody closed.
Right.
So, and then taking any pop out of my diet. Anything that was not green juice or water or 100% juice came out of my diet. Doesn't matter. It's not about a company. It was just about what it was. And I also had to take everything that were on my sheets. And my sheets have varied through the years from 4 pages to 1.5 pages. Taking it all out. And the lesson that I learned, she didn't tell me this, is, and then I also started seeing a colonics doctor that summer. And with his teachings, what I learned was we look at this as weight,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, in the holistic natural world, they look at it as waste.
Oh, wow.
So my colonics doctor will always say you're full of, because you literally are. And when the inflammatory things came out of my diet and I wasn't eating the bad things, that's why the weight fell off so fast.
Wow.
So we could literally be eating things that are that can be good for you, but they're not good for your body, was the lesson that I learned.
Kind of go into detail, explain that, you know, when you say good for
The
you.
fish is good for you.
Okay.
But for me at the time, it was one of my inflamers. So I had to take the inflamers out of my diet in order to continue on the wellness track. Now, that's not on my report anymore. And it changes your report, because during that first year, I saw her monthly, but that testing was every 3 months. And it changed. The one thing that stayed on there constant is coffee, and I don't like coffee anyway. That's the only thing that's been constant. But it has changed. It let us know one time when I was drinking too much green juice. And that's the one that really shocked me. Drinking too. I'm like, how can you do too? But apparently you can do too much of a good thing too.
Did you do a lot of juicing during that time too?
I was in so much pain. No. What I was doing was I was going to Drought and Beyond Juice and just buying their 6-packs. At first I was doing Drought, but then something happened, so I started going to Beyond Juice, and I would buy their 6-pack. I still do it sometimes now, of their pre-pressed organic green juice.
Okay.
Yep. Because I was in pain. I probably, from that November, I probably wasn't in pain anymore by May or June of the next year. That's why I used to post every night. I'm up again now at 3 a.m. because that's how much pain my back was in. Because I couldn't sleep. Once my body was in the full REM state, that's when it hurt the most.
And see, that's the thing that sometimes happens, because, I mean, when you have a poor diet,
Guilty.
I mean, I
think
can't
a lot
say
of
that
us are.
You know, a lot of us are guilty of that, because it's hard to really kind of pass up. And like you were just saying too, that's what I want you to, you know, to explain more detail to our audience. There are things that you think that could be good for you, but they may not be good for you.
Yes. And people always ask me with the journey with her, well, how much did it cost? My price ain't your price, because my body ain't your body. Your body tells the doctor what it needs. So no two people are treated the same in naturopath medicine.
Now, kind of go into a little bit more detail with us, Joey, about when you talk about naturopath, or when you talk about, you know, the type of wellness that Dr. Mitchell does. Because when you talk about like a homeopathic or a naturopathic, you know, in terms of, say, we're so used to having a regular doctor that we may go and visit, but there's things that doctors ask you, just like where they may ask you to get a stool sample, to get a urine sample, to get a blood sample, you know, to check these things. But in the whole, you know, with the homeopathic and that type of medicine, what are the things that they do, or what are some of the things that would occur? And we'll let Dr. Mitchell talk about what she does, but what are some of the things that...
some of the additional things that I did. So my sister that passed, she was a herbalist. So one thing she had me watch was this movie called Heal. It was on Netflix at the time. Y'all got to, I can't explain it. You got to watch it to understand it. But I had the pelvic ultrasound in February. I had it again in April. I had it again in June. If I remember correctly, the same person did the April and June one and slipped up and said, I wouldn't even think this was the same uterus if I wouldn't have did the last one. So when the doctor called me, she was like, well, one of your cysts has completely resolved, which meant dissolved. I'm like, okay. And she was like, but I still recommend you get the hysterectomy. I said, well...
even still after it...
I said, well, if from April 23rd when I started the treatment plan, and today is June 15, 16, why would I go get the hysterectomy now if one completely resolved? She was like, well, that's my recommendation. That's what I'm going to put in your chart. You just let me know your decision.
I mean, was she thinking that it was going to grow back again?
I don't know. So that night, I watched Heal again. I watched it like 5 times the first 3 to 4 months of the pandemic. And that night, they said something that caught my attention. They said, what was the word that they used? They said something about, oh my God, because we have 2 health systems that have it, not naturopath doctors. DOs are doctors of osteopathic medicine, but that wasn't the name they called them. And I searched, I can't think of the word that they used, but I put it in the Google search. And 2 of our health systems in Southeast Michigan popped up with those types of doctors in those types of centers. So we have 2 health systems in Southeast Michigan that actually have centers for integrated medicine. And they actually have DOs on staff. Like one of the health systems, I haven't looked at it since 2020. The doctor that used to actually run their center for integrated medicine was actually a naturopath doctor. And the other health system, the doctor that's over it, is actually a DO. And so I ended up switching health systems the next day to one of those health systems. And switching to health systems, I asked for, I'm gonna have to go back and watch the movie to remember what the name was, so we come with Dr. Mitchell. So I ended up seeing the new primary care, and I asked specifically for a referral to their Center for Integrated Medicine. And they were like, I haven't heard that in a long time. You know, when I called, when they gave me the referral and I did it, I actually see the DO. I only see my MD for the yearly checkup. I see the DO at the health system more than the MD, because a DO in their Centers for Integrated Medicine actually do more testing than the MD does. And they are aware that I see the naturopath, and they kind of work together. As a matter of fact, that doctor, like when you buy magnesium or all these supplements, they don't have me go to a Costco. They use a company that specializes in that for a naturopath. And this is through the health system that's giving me this. So it costs a little more, but the iron is much gentler on my stomach, or the magnesium. It's like the chelate versions of things. And I don't go to Costco or see, not that they said there's anything wrong with it. They just, I didn't even know that this thing was a thing until I'm doing this thing. So,
and you know, and it's so interesting because sometimes people don't understand, because you should read the labels on things that you get. And it's just like when you see during the pandemic, there were a lot of people that were telling you what you should be taking. Vitamins, certain supplements, you know, as you were mentioning before, and drinking certain kind of juices. And a lot of people were juicing during that time. And I know with myself, now I think that before the pandemic, I wasn't really into turmeric as much before the pandemic. But then after the pandemic, I'm seeing everybody telling me about turmeric. And now that's what I see even now when I see advertisements on Facebook, you know, and they talk about turmeric and, you know, other supplements that they add to turmeric. But the thing is that vitamin D3,
vitamin C,
you know,
vitamin C, zinc, magnesium.
Exactly. And even somebody even told me that tinctures of oregano were also good for that. So I think a lot of, you know, my friends had different regimens that they were doing that kind of helped them to get through, you know, that. And then just like when you talk about you getting the impression that you were listening to these doctors telling you that you were going to have to get a hysterectomy.
So when we get to the new OBGYN at the new health system finally, and they did the irony, I actually have the same procedure today. They did a pelvic MRI. No other health system had did an MRI. So when they did the pelvic MRI, and the doctor requested the stuff from the old health systems, you know, the doctor said, you never needed a hysterectomy. Back then, you probably needed your ovaries removed because the cysts were huge, but you never needed a hysterectomy. And I ain't gonna say the rest of the conversation, but it was just interesting. And I'm like, imagine if I would have had the hysterectomy, and then going through what I was going through with Dr. Mitchell. Some of the things that were even causing the issue, the hysterectomy wouldn't have
even fixed. Wow.
Because there were other medical issues that were underlying that were going on.
And you know, that's something, because I think that we men, we tend to not take as much advice to see our doctors for ailments that men go through compared to women, because you go through a lot on a regular basis, like to get a mammogram, to get a pelvic exam, or other things that go on as far as in your daily health regimen. But I think the thing is that we want to make certain that because I have to tell men over and over again, you've got to see your doctor on a regular basis. Ladies, continue to go and push men to go to see their doctors, to go and get checkups annually, biannually, or whatever the case may be. And we know that there's a lot of things that occur when it comes down to, especially with black people, black women, black men. And one of the things that is the stressors that we go through. And some of these things can lead to, if they're not checked, can lead to somebody transitioning. Stress,
diet. And another thing that has pretty much come out of my diet, I don't eat a lot of fried food anymore. So.
Yeah, and that was the conversation we had with Keith Bennett the other day, Ms. Willis, where we were talking about the fried foods. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, because they eat fried foods. And I mean, we go, and that's a natural something for us when we ride up and down the streets in the cities that we live in. You've got I hate to say the word, but when you see the word Kentucky Fried Chicken,
it's KFC now.
Right, but but when you see KFC, you see the word fried.
And then it's also about moderation. Because one thing that Dr. Mitchell had me do, because it's amazing what your body can tell somebody, and she could see that I was a snacker. I'm like, my testing can show that. So I love cookies, chips, and ice cream. So what I had to do to help me was, I no longer buy a big bag of chips. What she trained me to do was, when my body craved it, to just go get a single serving instead of keeping it in the house. That was hard at first, because I love ice cream.
Well, that's difficult, because it's like with me, now this is a guilty pleasure. I love, like when they do, like with the Lay's, potato chip commercial. Right. Can you just eat one?
No.
But, like in my case.
Because I love the cheddar sour cream.
Yes. And that's the thing, because I'll take a glob of chips and eat them versus like taking one at a time, and doing it like that. Yeah. But, and then when you're kind of like in a sedentary position, at your home, and you're just sitting there by yourself, eating, watching TV, it's hard to not want to continue to, to snack. And I mean, Miss Willis, are you one that's a compulsive, like when you're sitting in front of the TV set watching some of your favorite programs, like Truth to Power, or, or watching some of Joey Combs' insurance commercials? And do you then do and you'll just start to snacking on different things? Is there something in particular that you like to snack on? We know what Joey's.
When I heard Joey say that she was a snacker, I'm like, oh boy, that's something else we got in common. As a matter of fact, I keep little snacks in my glove compartment, down in my armrests. Yes, I am. But what I've tried to do is replace that with. Just the other day, I took some Honey Nut Cheerios and put them in a little baggie, or the fiber cereal. Instead of putting it in milk, I put it in a little bag. So just trying to say, okay, now instead of having jelly beans and chocolate candies, so just try to replace that with something healthier. And you said something so profound. and that it's just about moderation. But there's some things, I can't help it in moderation. If I got a big bag of chips, I'm going to eat them. So it's just a matter of just changing your mindset. That's why when you talk about the mental health, and that's why I'm just sitting here just in awe and hoping that our viewers are really taking all this in. And I just thank you for your transparency, sharing your personal story and history of how you changed your lifestyle. And we're certainly looking forward to Dr. Mitchell. And today's show just set the stage and set the tone for her. But it's something that this is why in my work with young people, to start early with them understanding that health is wealth. And how to take care of your body and planting those seeds early for healthy eating. Because again, another thing that I found with myself when I get stressed out, run to the ice cream.
Me, and I love butter pecan.
That's my favorite. But you'd be surprised at mentally when we are affected, what we do with those feelings. So that's why
I specifically love Stroh's butter pecan.
Oh, yes. Oh, boy.
No. What I shifted is I would start eating like kettle cooked sweet potato chips.
Okay.
And there were 2 tools that I discovered during the pandemic. One is
Hold that thought.
Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break. So hold those 2. So write that down. So make sure that we don't want to miss
sometime.
Right. When we come back. But you're watching Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, with Miss Maxine Willis, our general manager for WHPR TV, as well as Joey Combs, who is now the person that you want to go to when you need to get life insurance.
Yes.
Joey Combs. We'll be right back.
I wasn't ready. One minute he was here, the next one gone. What do I do? No life insurance, no savings, just funeral costs, unpaid bills, and fear. I can't keep living like this. Life insurance just wasn't for him to get. It was for us, for all of us, for the ones left behind. Love your family enough to plan ahead, because love lives on. Let me, Joey Combs, help you write your last love letter to your family. I can be reached at www.linktree.com/Joey Combs. I am a life insurance broker. I can be reached at www.linktree.com/Joey Combs. Let me, Joey Combs, help you write your last love letter to your family.
To the I Love the Hustle show, Saturday afternoons at 12 p.m., followed by Mr. Smooth's Ballroom and Steppers Express Dance Show on WHPR 15.2 Detroit, Apple TV, Roku, and many streaming platforms. See you Saturday.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth, facts, evidence, matter. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
.313watkins.com. Streaming on Roku.
Welcome back. You are watching Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we are joined by my co-host for today, and that is our general manager for the station, Ms. Maxine Willis, as well as the young lady who pretty much does and knows a lot when it comes down to wellness and taking good care of yourself, and that is Miss Joey Combs. Joey, before we took the break, you were about to impart some additional tools that people should adhere to.
Yes. Like I said earlier, I talked about Beyond Juice and Drought. I don't think Drought has a retail store. They only do online. So I switched to Beyond Juice, but then there is a black juice company I started using during the pandemic. I'm not sure if they still sell juice, but I'm going to find out before we get here with Dr. Mitchell. But the other two resources that I ended up using was called the Yuka app. It's an app you download on your phone, and you can scan the same scan that they use at the grocery store to charge you the price. You can scan it, and it lists everything about the products.
When you say Yuka, can you spell that?
Yuka, and I think it's like a little carrot.
Yuka, and it's called Yuka.
App, yep. And it basically tells you the positives and the negatives about any product. And it also gives you recommendations of products of the similar nature that are better for you.
Wow.
Yep. And the other was Thrive Market. When she told me I had to stop snacking and all that, my sister, she the one who know all of this stuff and be like, besides Dr. Mitchell, you need to do this, 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 and this. So I started using this online market called Thrive Market.
Okay.
And they deliver the stuff like right to your door. They even have it set up to where you can have your stuff come to you in subscription. You ain't even got to remember. They just charge your card, and then it shows up at your front door on your delivery date that you requested.
Wow.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure I share my link with you because me and you both get a credit.
Please.
And that's where I was getting the sweet potato kettle chips from because they were so good.
Yeah, because that's what I hear a lot of people saying. That's what they do. They eat instead of the regular potato chips, they eat like the sweet potato.
They had a 6-pack, so I really thought I was doing something. I would put it in my glove box.
Yeah, and that's the important part, that when you replace the bad stuff with something that's healthier and realize that it tastes good, pretty good.
And what I like about their subscription is if you subscribe, they'll discount stuff. So. But I probably haven't ordered from there in a year now. So now you're going to make me go back.
Go back and start ordering some additional things. So, Joey, in this last little half an hour, can you kind of talk about, we talk about things that people need to do to stay well.
Yes.
But now when people make transitions, what should they do prior to transitioning? And what should loved ones do with people that may be about to transition, or they know that they're transitioning soon? What should they do?
What should they do? This is a loaded question. This is a loaded question.
That's what we're getting truth to power.
When my sister passed, just to tell a little bit of that story, I realized what healthcare workers were going through the pandemic, but I didn't have to go into a hospital and put on PPE. As my sister, when her stage 4 breast cancer came back in the summer of 23, and as she transitioned, I probably was one of the last ones who went to visit her at the hospital. And I had to put on full PPE because she had COVID.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, how did they do this every day having to, I did it one time.
But they have to do it every day.
Every day.
I did it one time, and she transitioned a few days after that. Because I felt when I walked in the room, I was looking at my mama. But my niece, she tells me all the time, I wouldn't know what to do to bury my mom if you wasn't here. Like, we ain't never had this conversation. And so now what I do, my baby, sometimes she'll sell sunglasses, I think. But I'll do pop-up shops with her now. So the ones that I've been going to are Tasty Tire. She's a young entrepreneur. I think She started when she's about 15 or 16.
What's her name again?
Tasty Taya.
Okay.
She cooks. Her mom, and she came to her mom with an idea about having pop-up shops, you know, and she has about 60 vendors. It's usually at the VFW hall. It's in Farmington Hills. She does it once a month for the last 3 or 4 years. So we did a few last year. But I get a table to go give out literature about life insurance. And I always include a checklist because some of my companies give me a booklet to give to my clients, which I do. But because these people aren't clients, but I feel like people need a checklist, like the family needs to know if you want to be cremated or buried.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they need to know who you want to handle the body. You know, who did the body, as we always ask in our culture.
Right.
Even when my own mom passed, and this is not something I thought about until my sister passed, my mom had a DNR on file, a do not resuscitate. When I'm gone, don't try to bring me back. Does someone in your family have that? If someone can't make the medical decisions, who's the next person that would?
Right.
Yeah. And see, that's something that I went through just like with my mother, you know, when she transitioned, that was something, and it was a tough decision in some cases. It was really tough even with my father because he, you know, was dealing with Alzheimer's. And it was just a matter of trying to go, and I'm thinking that he could get better. And I didn't want to put the DNR, the do not resuscitate, you know, on the door. But that was something that me and my family had to kind of go through, my brothers and sisters, and even my mother at the time, because my mother transitioned after my father did. But trying to convince others that not to give up.
Yes.
There still could be hope.
Yes.
You know, and we've all experienced, you know, loved ones that have transitioned. But it's like, and even the same thing when it comes down to cremation. There's a lot of people that do not believe in cremation.
That's right.
Correct.
Yes.
But right now, cremation is something that's a whole lot less expensive
Correct.
than some of the burial, you know.
And with cremation, do they want cremation in a memorial, or do they want an open casket and then to be cremated?
Right. Yeah.
Because you can rent a casket from the funeral home if you want to have a service, and then their body is going to be cremated. Because that's what we did with my dad. So we rented the casket at the funeral home.
And see, that's something too, you know, because there's a lot of things that go along with. Because, you know, there are people that still think that there's still life after death and don't want to get cremated because they feel like there's still, and it depends on what religion that somebody, you know, that they, you know, believe in. But I think the thing is, it's just that there was, during the time of the pandemic, there was a lot of things that people didn't know. But people were being very innovative during that time. And it was tough because, I mean, you even had the homegoing services where you could drive up to a window.
That's right.
And actually view the person laying in the casket. And then in other cases, you had the services out in your car, where it was almost like a drive-in.
That's right.
You know, where you could see the service inside the church or inside the funeral home that was being held on a big screen TV. And you're out in your car listening on your radio because they would tell you what to, you know, what station to, you know.
Technology.
And
like you had to drive in.
You're exactly right. But it was innovative.
Yes.
The way that they did that.
Zooms.
And then Zooms, you know, at the same time.
Right.
You know, and the sad part about it was that it was a lot that was going on during that time because a lot of people were transitioning. So it was like, in some cases, the funeral homes were really hard pressed to continue the work that they were doing. And if they had a specific time, you were out of there by that time because they had to go to the next family, you know, and so on and so forth. But let's talk in a few minutes, Joey, about why then is it really that, you know, why is it really that important to have all of your affairs in order before you make that transition?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but you want to avoid going to probate?
That's-
I mean, even when you talk about something as simple as the bank account, is there somebody designated for the bank account? Do you have a beneficiary listed on your life insurance policy? Have you revisited the life insurance policy to make sure the beneficiary is not now dead and that it needs to go to somebody who's living? I'm trying to think of what else on life insurance. Definitely listing beneficiaries.
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about too when you're talking about life insurance. Is it too much? Is it too little? You know, because you see the commercials all the time.
Oh, yeah.
With this gentleman that's on there for, I'm not going to mention the name of the, you know, but he mentions a specific price.
Yeah.
And that price is real minimal.
Correct.
And
People can give you quotes, but your health and lifestyle are going to dictate what you actually pay. I can quote you all day. That doesn't mean that that's what you're going to pay in the end, because underwriting hasn't happened. Your medical information bureau file hasn't been pulled in the underwriting process. So anybody can tell you anything, but how much you're going to pay is going to be determined by your life, your lifestyle, and your health, period.
I hear a lot of people being confused about term life, whole life policies.
Term covers a period of time, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, 35.
Okay.
Companies will give the option to renew, and it may cost a whole lot more when it renew. Whole life is a cash value, so it starts to build cash value, and you will have it your whole life as long as you're keeping the premiums to date. Both have a benefit. It depends on where you are. So we like to sit down and do with clients what's called their financial independence number, figuring out between cash value policies, term policies, investments, whether annuities or IRAs. What is your financial independence number? Because everybody's is different. One of the things we take into consideration, especially when considering life insurance, like how many kids do you have that are under 18?
Okay.
How many years do you have until they're 18? What is your yearly salary? So when you're looking at life insurance, because we love to pay by a dollar number, you know what I'm saying? I want to pay $50 a month. I want to pay $100 a month. No, what is your true number that you need to cover everything if you were to die tomorrow? And that's an unknown number until you get to sitting down and doing it.
Speaking of sitting down and doing it, I'd just like to get back to the basics for a minute, because we know this is a very touchy subject that many families don't talk about. What would you recommend? I mean, just how would a family that's watching the show today say, you know what, I do need to talk to my family about this, but where do I start? What do I say? And I know you know. I mean, I'm just because I hear families say this all the time. Oh, we can't talk about this. Or when I start, the other member says, oh, I don't want to talk about this right now. So what are some key reasons why we need, we understand that from a financial perspective, but just getting to the basics for just a person who's watching the show today to say, how do I talk to my family about this? And if they continue to resist, what do I do?
Involve your financial services person. Because a lot of times, and this is not just life insurance, in life, your family just don't want to hear it from you. You need a different messenger. You need a different messenger.
Okay.
And they can say whatever they want to me because it's not personal. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to help you make sure on the other side of death and grief that you can deal with it. That's why I'm here.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I'm always available. For me, because my mom passed when I was so young, I do reach out to people on social media or friends when I see that they experience a death, because people don't remember to eat.
That's right. Yeah.
They call it now, it's called grief groceries. But it's so much going on in such a little period of time, people don't even remember the grocery shop.
Right.
Just doing those little things matter. Having a check, I'm going to have to figure out on Linktree how to add my checklist, so when people go out there, they can just get the checklist of the things they need to do. Because your family is not just knowing about the life insurance and the beneficiaries. and the bank accounts. They need to know what banks you got bank accounts at. They need to know who the life insurance is with. I'm one of those people who really love everything to be sent to my email. But one of my agent friends said to me, I still choose the mail option when the carrier asks, because if the family can't get in your phone, how they gonna get the email?
Exactly.
Right.
like-
Those are That's why I'm just excited about what's being discussed today, because I'm learning so much.
Yeah, and I was like, aha.
Right.
Like you can
right.
request everything else to be electronically, but the original
But the
policy
original policy,
to come in the
right.
mail. Plus, it keeps our sisters and brothers employed at the post office.
Well, the main thing is it does that, but it also gives people an opportunity to have these discussions.
Yes.
That, as
That's
Ms. Willis was
right.
saying, have them now,
Yeah.
Right.
rather than to be
right.
scrambling it, later, having these conversations. And sadly, sometimes people are having these conversations in the hospital.
Yes.
That's right.
And a person might not even be in the right frame of mind.
Right.
And that's tough, especially when you're trying to be, getting together with all of the rest of your family members
Yes.
in a chapel or something like
That's
that to have
right.
this kind of conversation.
And don't let the next of kin be bitter and petty. 'Cause
That's-
then you don't
yeah.
get it's.
Right.
I'm telling you,
right.
death, babies, and divorce will show people's true colors.
Yeah. right. Right.
But but the thing is just that we have to do better,
Yes.
but we have to do better now.
That's
Yes.
right. That's
and
right.
we need to have these conversations that, as you were saying, Ms. Willis, we need to have these hard topics
right.
to talk about, because we know that there's something that we can't escape, and that is
That's right.
death.
Right.
And and now with everything that's going on in the world now,
That's right.
we don't know what a lot of the cutbacks, with a lot of the different things that's happening.
That's
in
right.
terms
We
of
really
saying,
need to talk about it now.
we need to be talking about it now.
Yeah.
And especially when there's threats upon Social Security, threats upon your Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, there's so many different, and then even in coverage
That's right.
when it comes to your health insurance, that you need to put some things in place, now, rather than wait until later, and then you find out you don't have the coverage, you don't have things that could be in place,
Yes.
like that part. But what would you recommend then, Joey, when you're talking about things like that? What would you recommend to the average? Because and that's another thing too. We got to have these conversations with people at different ages and different
That's right.
stages of their life. And a person in their 20s or 30s might not be thinking about this. But now, as you see, Ms. Willis, Ms. Combs, you're seeing people transition at earlier ages
yeah.
than like the average person thinking, okay, well, maybe like somebody in their 70s or 80s. But now you're seeing people transition even in their 30s and 40s.
Correct. The cheapest time you will ever lock in the cheapest rate for life insurance is that when a person is first born.
Wow.
Yep. Most carriers let you cover a child. Well, carriers that cover youth, you can cover, depending on the carrier, somewhere between 14 and 21 days old.
Wow.
And some of those companies will cover the child till 18 or 25, and then it'll have to transition to their own policy. And some companies, once you lock in the coverage, they can have it for life. And depending on that company, that could mean 100 or 120, 120. It just depends on the company. But the cheapest you'll ever lock it in is before they turn 1.
Wow.
And you do have to look at if it's a policy that will transition over when they reach a certain age, or if it's a policy that transitions to them once they become an adult with that locked-in price. So I tell my clients every month, this is the best $19 you're going to spend for this child.
So the average is probably about how much then? Because you see the commercials that may say $9.95, or you see commercials that say, and these prices are locked in, they can never change, But
you don't need a health exam. That's what some of the.
When you don't need the health exam, when they don't ask the
Mhm.
questions, that's usually a guaranteed issue policy, which means there's
Okay.
usually a waiting period that can be 24, 36. The waiting period is defined by the company.
Okay.
Let's just use on average the 24 months. If you're paying $100 a month and you
Mhm.
die in month 22, they'll refund the family the 100 times the 22 months plus the easy math, 10% interest. And some people be like, well, that's not good. But if that's all you qualify for because you dealing with a illness right now
Yeah, I
that
got
could kill you,
Mhm.
your family having the 2,200 plus the interest is better than zero.
Okay.
So then that's a mindset, like something is always going to be better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the company can just keep the money you've paid. They have to give it to you and they return it with interest.
So the average time that you would probably need to go in, because I keep hearing 2 years minimum.
That's on a guaranteed issue.
Okay.
Okay. Mm.
But then, so now can you still get the benefit of the policy less than 2 years?
If you pass before the 2 years, they're only going to give you the premiums back.
Just the premiums.
Yeah, if
so
you
if
make
you paid
it
$100 a month or
yeah,
whatever.
if you make it past whatever that company's, because I know there's some companies that do 3 years. If you make it past their waiting period, then the policy, whatever they have in the conditions, should be enforced. But that's why it's always good to read your policy too.
Yeah, and to have a
Yep.
and to have an agent that you can really trust.
Yep.
You know,
Right,
to
right.
be able to tell you
Mhm.
all of the different nuances about that.
Yeah, because you asked about cash value, and in my own example, when my mom passed and I got
Mhm.
my own policy, I was 22. I got a term.
Okay. Mhm.
It's $100,000 a month. I still have it because I'm not. It's not 30
Mhm.
years later. I pay $14 a month because I did the
Okay.
blood test to get the preferred rating.
Mhm.
10 years later, at 32, she sold me a cash value. And she was like,
Okay.
oh, you could borrow from this, da-da-da-da. So through the years, I've borrowed from it. And then one year I went to borrow from it. She did say to me, like, you keep borrowing, it'll lapse. I'm like, but that ain't what you
Oh, but
told
that's
me in the
not-
beginning.
in the beginning,
So you got to make sure
right.
you understand everything
Okay.
from the beginning.
Right.
And she also sold me a policy on my daughter when she was 3. It was like a 15 pay life. So it was a cash value.
Mhm.
I paid premiums for 15 years, and when she turned 18, it's paid off for the rest of her life for the $25,000. So it's just like all of these little things
Right,
that can
right.
exist. But I was like, on the cash value, when I stopped borrowing from, I like, but you didn't tell me that in the beginning.
Right.
So
right.
we're
You
sold
gotta
on this
read it.
concept of
Yeah.
cash value, but what tool are you utilizing it for? Are you utilizing it for the death benefit or for the borrowing of the cash value? And that's why term still plays an important role, because if you're borrowing from your cash value and something happens to you prematurely, they still need to bury you and leave.
Mhm.
So that's why you got to sit down, and the financial advisor needs to know the whole financial picture.
Right. And then does it increase as you get older?
Depends on how y'all set it up in the beginning.
Okay. Okay. That's why it's so important to know the
Yep.
questions to ask
Yep.
too.
Yep. Because you do have some policies that the premiums increase every 5 years.
Okay.
So you really got to know what you're getting from the beginning. And some people are shocked in year 6. Oh, my
Mhm.
premium went to this. And some people may not pay attention because it could creep up slowly every 5 years.
Mhm.
But say you got it at 30 and now you 60 and it's done increase. You paying $100 or $200 more. You like, wait a minute, this ain't what, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
You thought because you started off at let's just say $50, but 30 years later you
Mhm.
paying $200 for the same thing, when you could have just originally got a policy that was a little more and stayed level your whole life.
So Joe, in the few minutes we have left, so if you, let's say, were insured by a specific, like you, for example, and let's say somebody was with you for, let's say, 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
but then they stopped paying their premium.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to that premium at that point?
Depends on what type of policy it is. If it's term, it would probably lapse. If it's a cash value, depending on if they borrowed from it or not, the cash value can start picking up the premium until it runs out the cash value pot. So it's all in how it's all in what type it is and how it's structured in the beginning.
Okay. Joey, we're about to wrap up, so give your contact information real quick for the audience.
So my website is www.linktree.com/Joey Combs. I'm going to make sure I get a phone number for you next time. I'm supposed to do that. I ain't putting my cell phone on the airways.
Well, we just appreciate your transparency, the information. It certainly is something that we take great pride in being able to enlighten our viewers, and just hope that someone today will be encouraged to sit down and talk to their family. And I love when you said if they can't talk with them, get somebody like you, because again, you family members may take something from somebody else differently than their own family. But that was very, very good.
I'm transparent because I'm on assignment. When you know who you are and whose you are, and you know your assignment.
That's right. Well, you know your assignment, and we appreciate you. We really do.
I thought I was about to die. So the fact that I don't just exist, I now live.
Yes.
I want somebody else to live.
Yes.
Well, we definitely have to have you come back on. We definitely want to send a get well message to Dr. Kyra Mitchell.
Yes.
And again, thank you, Ms. Willis, for accompanying me in this journey today. You were phenomenal.
Yes.
Joey Combs, definitely if you need to get any information about insurance, contact Joey Combs.
And annuities.
Contact Joey Combs. And we definitely want to thank Mr. Bill Proctor for being on the show with us.
Yes.
And as he was saying too, if you know or if you knew of anything that happened back then in 1974, please contact Bill Proctor and his investigatory team.
Yes.
Again, thank you to R.J. Watkins for allowing us to have this opportunity to be able to go and have this show. And we hope that you have a great rest of this afternoon.
Yes.
I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and you've been watching a very special edition of Truth to Power.
Yes.
We'll see you soon.